Right. I mean, there's always the question of like, oh, should I just use like, a source sheet from 2 years ago? No, never. But I didn't, and I don't. I don't generally, just so you know. Um, okay, so it is 8:46. Hey, let's get started. Hi, Beth. Good to see you. Okay, so why isn't it gallery up there? That's the question. Speaker. Aha. Hi, Sue Ann. Good to see you. Hi, Abigail. Good to see you. Okay. All right. Let's do the lesson overture study. And we will start from the beginning again. Feel free to unmute yourselves in unison. Baruch atah
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok divrei Torah.
So blessed are you, source of all life, who has commanded us to study your sacred wisdom. Amen. Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning again. And today I'm going to be exploring loneliness, both the loneliness of God and the loneliness of people, the aloneness, and how we kind of reach towards one another, and specifically how God reaches towards us. And sort of imagining, like, why is God creating? What's that about? Why does God want an other at all, whether it's a world or a human being? And good morning, Mark. And the frustration of that throughout the Torah for God, like human beings are disappointing, the Israelites are disappointing again and again and again. So, like, why is God even entering into this project? And I'm especially thinking about loneliness at this moment.
Hey, Reb, sorry for interrupting.
Oh, you can't hear me?
It's a little bit quiet. Can you just move the mic a little bit closer?
It's because the computer was blocking the microphone. How's that? Should I repeat all that?
I heard it all.
You heard it all. Okay. So briefly, we're going to be digging into loneliness today, loneliness of God, loneliness of human beings, but specifically God and what drove God to create. And especially because the human enterprise is disappointing to God again and again, and then the Israelites are disappointing to God again and again. And also at this point, we've been through quite a week, and thinking about the terrible, terrible loneliness of the hostages. You could see in the reunions, like, just how deeply joyful and sort of wondrous it was to come home again. So affected by that. And also seeing, the Palestinians make their way back to Gaza City and sort of the mixed, going home to rubble. So the complexity of that and trying to hold it all at this moment. And, thinking about the loneliness of the last 2 years, also for some of us who have felt like alone in our workplaces or even alone at Romemu or alone wherever. And, not knowing who you can turn to with your own struggles and your own thoughts. And sometimes the unsafety of that. So that's where I am. And we're going to dig in. Okay, here we go. Sharing my screen. The loneliness of God, divinity desperately seeking partnership. Do you remember that movie, Desperately Seeking Susan? That was one. I don't remember what the movie was about, but I remember the title. So the resonance was in my mind. Okay, here we go. So I love, so I'm going to start from the Shema, from God's oneness. Good morning, Tomas. Welcome. So glad you could be here. Is there a source sheet for Tomas? Thank you. Sarah, do you have one? They're playing. Okay. So just to, sort of underline the fact that the sort of sacred formula of Judaism highlights God's oneness. And that can be interpreted in different ways, and we'll see that in a minute. Okay. So I'm starting now just sort of setting the stage for creation, but not looking at creation yet. Welcome, David Kurtz. Okay, so we're starting from the Shema. Everyone knows it. I think everyone knows it. Shema Yisrael Adonai Echad. Listen, God. Listen, Israel. Adonai, our God. Adonai is one. And so the ahavta. So what's the consequence of that? That's interesting. How does the love follow from the oneness? I'm asking that now rhetorically. Okay, I'm not going to get into that yet. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך, בכל נפשך, בכל מאודיך, and you are to love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your substance, with all your might, all your muchness. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך. And these are the words I myself command you today are to be upon your heart. So we go from the Shema, very quickly go to the notion of command, which we're going to get into again a little bit later. Command is the sort of the divine human locution. And what about divinity, or the relationship between divinity and human beings, gives way to that command, that language, at least in the Torah, the language of command. Okay, did I see something in the chat that I should be looking at? Still a bit quiet. Yes, I should. Okay, it's Caroline. Suggestions? I'm right in front of the speaker.
Contact Victor, because the sound was good before, but somehow we can never have nice things. I'll contact Victor. Yeah.
So, can you be in touch with Victor?
Yeah, I can call him. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I love this. This is from Professor Alan Brill, who I think is at Yeshiva University. Who says and he's a scholar of Soloveitchik and a Jewish scholar in general. I don't know exactly what his specialty is, but I know he does a lot of existential philosophy. Judaism is monotheistic. Therefore, the Shema means that God is not just a numerical one, but that God is only one, that he, she, they is only one, unique and solitary. But the real meaning is that Shema Yisrael, the Lord, is lonely. Like, whoa, that's a kind of radical statement. And what does it mean? What does it mean? So perhaps it means the following. And this is Norman Lamb, who was, I think he's no longer alive. Is that correct? Asher Chaim, do you know? Jewish thinker? Oh, you can't hear me? Is Norman Lamb not alive anymore? I think he's not. Is that correct? You don't know. Okay. Someone knows, put it in the chat or say so. Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb, modern Orthodox thinker, theologian, Jewish thinker and theologian. There is a spiritually indigestible aspect of divine oneness. Well, that's interesting. What does that mean? God's utter aloneness. As we meet God, loneliness encounters loneliness. And as each of us offers one's loneliness as a gift to the other, that's also interesting, we experience relief. So when we share loneliness, we experience relief, as it were, from cosmic loneliness. It is not, of course, that God truly experiences loneliness as we do. We are certainly beyond such crude anthropopathisms, that's assigning human emotions to non-humans, like animals or God. Rather, in our religious imagination, we project our own loneliness upon God. So he's saying, at least here, that God is not actually lonely, but we project loneliness onto God. Conceiving of God, too, conceiving of God too as suffering from this vast and incredible loneliness and thus allowing each person and God to sympathize with each other. Indeed, the Torah assumes a mutual dependency between God and each person and their need for each other. Thus, the proclamation of divine unity is followed by the commandment, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. Both God and human beings deserve rahmanas, pity or compassion, rahmanut. We for our failure and pain and suffering, and God for being abandoned by this creature creating God's very own image and endowed with the gift of free will that we misuse and abuse. And so each waits and longs for the other. The way to bridge the brooding cosmic loneliness, to find our way to each other, is through love. It is this sense of mutual sympathy that gives rise to love. So that's amazing. So should we have compassion for God? I mean, if you read the Torah, you see God is struggling again and again. And you also see that God's relationship, intimacy with Moshe, is so important to God, especially when in Numbers, when Aaron and Miriam speak badly about Moshe, God is incensed. And God is like, how dare you insult my prophet with whom, I have this, face-to-face relationship. It's like they've encroached on God's intimacy with Moshe. So relationship, if you read the Torah, at least the way the Torah portrays God, is certainly crucial for God. And God is disappointed again and again and again in the Israelites to the point of great anger, right? Which indicates that God is deeply invested in that relationship. Okay, so let's just digest that for a moment before we go to the beginning of creation. I'll stop my share and see if how the sense of God's loneliness, or the imagination of God as lonely, sort of lands for us. It's certainly in tension with the sense of God being all-powerful. Yes, Rob. Make sure you have a speaker. Yeah, thank you.
I once took a class about the Ramchal, and the Ramchal, very
Chaim
interesting.
Moshe Luzzatto.
Yes, and he talks about Shema, God is one, because he doesn't speak. He talks about God and everything being one, that we're all part of a collective God.
Mm-hmm. We're all part of that oneness.
A oneness.
That unity.
Right. So if the Ramchal is correct, that there is no two, it's only one, that loneliness is in our own heads.
Because we're inextricably connected and radically connected. And that's in line with Chassidut, the Hasidic thinkers as well, this non-dualistic approach to God. Thank you. Okay, I see Adel has her hand up.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
This doesn't land well for me because when I read the Kabbalah, there's this notion of Abba and Ima in constant union.
Father and mother in constant union.
Yeah, above, yeah. The God, the feminine and masculine aspects of the divine are in constant union. But going back to the Shema, it's interesting. Shema, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. The word Echad and Ahava in Kabbalah are both equal to 13. So it's interesting that we go straight to Va'ahavta after hearing the word Echad.
Beautiful. So perhaps Ahava, love, is really the way to oneness. So I understand that given that idea in Kabbalah, loneliness doesn't sit well with you. And there are many, many different ideas of God within Judaism, including the fact that the divine sparks are here on this earth in exile. That's another Kabbalistic idea. that we need to sort of send those sparks back up to God. So, you know, hold on, Ada. I'm going to
Yeah.
actually have to move on. And as Ron was saying, like presenting like another notion of God. So there like Judaism traffics in notions of God. There isn't one that we're going to land on. So I'm presenting some other notions today. Okay, I'm going to go to Beth.
Shabbat Shalom.
So back to
Thinking about the loneliness of God and looking at it in physical terms, if you think about the composition of the universe as best we know it, it seems like there's more emptiness than there is stuff. And if you look at things at a much smaller scale, if you look at the atoms that make up everything, there's more emptiness than there is stuff. And it's almost as if this physical emptiness is also a form of emotional emptiness. And the scales are so vast, the scale of the entire universe, even just our galaxy, even just our solar system, that that's a lot of emptiness. And so I can kind of see how God might get lonely in all that.
That's beautiful, Beth. So I love, you know, in New York City, it's easy to forget about the emptiness. And you know how unpopulated the universe is as opposed to populated. But thank you for introducing that idea into the room. Jill, I'm going to go on with some more text and I'm going to call on you a little bit later. So now we're going to go to the beginning. Let me share my source sheet. Okay, so this is really, the first few verses are grammatically, certainly the first word is grammatically confusing, right? And maybe Asher Chaim will also speak to this in a moment, but let me explain it as I understand it. And those of you who know me know I'm not a grammar person, but I will do my best. So Reshit, the first word of the Torah, is in construct form, smichut, right? So it should be not in the beginning, but the beginning of, like in Deuteronomy, in Dvarim, it says, Reshit tiganecha. Asher Chaim already wants to correct me. Go ahead.
No, it's not correct at all. If it were freestanding, it would be ba reshit, in the beginning. Be reshit is in the beginning of.
In the beginning of. So it should have a noun that it's attached to, but it doesn't. It has a verb, right? So the way it's to sort of smooth that sort of grammatical glitch over, Everett Fox says, at the beginning of God's creating, right? As opposed to in the beginning God created. But there's a missing noun here.
The other way to, quote, solve the grammar is to say not ba reshit, in the beginning, but be, using reshit, God created.
So using the beginning God created, is that what you're saying? That's fascinating.
Where reshit does not mean beginning, but reshit is used by the rabbis creatively. I don't know if you've got that in your lesson this morning, but using reshit, God created.
Yeah, so how are you translating reshit in that case?
Oh, the rabbis say reshit chochma yirat Hashem.
Oh, reshit
that
chochma.
reshit is a code name for the Torah.
Right. So using Torah as a paradigm, as a blueprint, God created the world. Okay, so that's midrashic. But here, what we need to know is it's in construct form, but there's a noun missing. And in a way, in a moment, Dr. Rachel Annisfeld will comment on that and make sense of that. So Breshit bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz, at the beginning of God's creating of the heavens and the earth. So now we're about to hear, what was the world like before God started creating? V'haaretz haita tohu vavohu. And the world was desolate, or the world was confusion and chaos, or topsy-turvy, different translations for those words, which sort of rhyme in an interesting way. Tohu vavohu. And choshech al pnei tahom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. And there was darkness over the face of ocean, and rushing spirit of God, or the spirit of God, soaring or hovering is another translation for merachefet, over the waters. And at some point when I read this some years ago, sure it was after I gave birth, at least for the first time, I had this image of a womb, right? The mother's breath, the darkness, the water. It's really sort of kind of evocative of, that the environment of birth. And of course, as this is like, originally a Near Eastern document, there's all kinds of cosmogonies, right? Mythologies that imagine the origin of the universe that more explicitly imagine the start of the universe as a birth. Okay, so now let's see what Dr. Rachel Annisfeld says. And interestingly, well, she is the sister-in-law of my Chavruta, Rabbi Sharon Kuhn Annisfeld. So the whole family has deep Torah. Can someone read that? Connor, do you feel like reading number 5? Here, I'm going to give you this.
Well, at the top.
The strangeness
The
of the word.
strangeness of the word
Reshit.
Reshit also fits this sense of searching for a partner. The word is actually a construct.
In
from. I'm a very creative reader. Literally meaning something like in the beginning of, but without an object for the preposition of. It is a dangling word, a word in search of a partner, much like God himself. In search of a partner, though, is not the search for a partner, though, is not met with immediate success. Human beings turn out to be hard to partner with. He calls out to them, Ayeka, where are you? I want to connect to you. But they hide from him in shame. They don't really know how to partner with this awesome force. They are both not afraid enough and too afraid for intimacy. Later, Abraham will know how to respond. Hineni, here I am. It is a heart-rending story for God. Parashat Breshit. By the end, he looks down on humanity with disgust and sadness and disappointment.
Vayitatzev el libo.
The Torah says, God is saddened in his heart. These humans are not fit partners.
So this is right before the flood of Noah, where God is grieved to God's heart and regretting that God had created the world.
These humans are not fit partners, yet the story, of course, will not unfold through Noah and Abraham and the people of Israel. And the story still continues to unfold right now. This story of God's search for partnership in humanity.
Great, thank you so much. So I thought that was like a really beautiful articulation of, God's, thank you. God's disappointment and yet God's persistence. Like nevertheless, right? Disappointed again and again, destructive again and again, and yet nevertheless, right? Continued partnership with threats at moment of complete destruction, like Noah, like after the golden calf. Okay, so now let's look at this imagination of God pre-creation. Amar Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon, Yihi erev ein ketiv kan, ela va yihi erev. So Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon said, it will be evening is not written here, but rather it was evening. Mikan shahaya seder zmanim kodem lachen. From here we learn that there had been an order to time even beforehand. So in other words, God's starting in the middle. Like we have this beginning of the Torah, but God's process of creation already started before the Torah begins, right? Which is amazing to think about. So what does it look like? Amar Rabbi Abahu milamed shahaya boreh olamot umacharivan. And Rabbi Abahu says that this teaches that God would construct worlds, create worlds, and destroy them. Ad shebara et elu. Until he created the current one, the one that we're talking about here in Reshit. Amar den hanyanli, yaton lon hanyanli. And as he was in the process of creating and destroying, he's like, oh, these please me, these don't please me. So he went through a process, much like an artist does, or a writer does, or many of us do in our own fields, or a composer does, right? It's not working. I'm going to destroy it, start again. Right? So until God got to this process, God was in that process, which is really interesting because you can even see that tension in the Torah itself, where God's creative and destructive forces kind of vie with each other. And that's why human beings are in danger because of that. Want to say something, David? Okay, I see something percolating. Okay, then it says, Amar Rabbi, so here's another proof text, Amar Rabbi Pinchas Ta'amei de Rabbi Abahu. And Rabbi Pinchas says the source for Rabbi Abahu, he's giving Rabbi Abahu a proof text, a support for his position. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa b'hinei tov me'od. God saw everything they made, and behold, it was very good. Indicating again that this pleases me and those did not please me. Like finally, when God gets to, creation of this world, it pleases God. Quick comment, Tomas?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Are there teachings or traditions or folklore about how far along these previous worlds?
How long did it go on?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a great question.
Is there some kind of Atlantis universe?
That's a really good question. Ooh. Were they all destroyed, or is there another one somewhere?
Right.
I have other texts on this that I can send you. If you send me an email, I send that to you. I have another source.
I just mean if did these previous worlds last 1 billion years, 1 second? Like were there?
Like maybe there's another world that lasted as long as this world.
That's what I'm saying.
But then God destroyed it. So, which means that maybe we're in another process now that this world will, not last forever, and another world will be created. Okay, so I know that Jill was waiting from before. Jill, do you want to say, I want to do some more text, so I want to keep comments relatively short right now. Jill, do you have something, or should we wait till a larger conversation?
Go ahead, keep going, and thank you.
You sure? Okay.
100%, thank you.
Okay, when we open up to the issue, I will call on you. And Asher Chaim, did you want to say something pointed? Yeah, go ahead.
The suggestion from this midrash is that indeed the other worlds were lousy compared to this one. And I'm reminded of the old joke. The optimist says, this is the best possible world. And the pessimist says, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
It's just like the first pancake.
It's like a first pancake. Yeah. That first pancake is never, it's like, yeah. Right. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, because the pan, and even if the pan's really hot, that first pancake is not so good, right? Yeah. It doesn't have like the right texture and consistency. Your pancakes. Okay. So, teachings of Rabbi Kalonymus Kalman Shapiro, who was a Hasidic, rabbi teacher during the Holocaust, translated by Nehemiah Poland. Could we have another reader either in the room or online?
I can read it, the mic is here.
Tomas, yeah.
Before the world was created, God alone existed, one and eternal beyond any boundary, without change or movement, concealed within God's self. When the thought arose in God to bring the world into being, God's glory became visible. God began to trace the foundations of a world before God's self, and in this way, God brought a heaven and earth into being. But when God looked at them, they were not pleasing in God's sight, so God changed them back into emptiness and void.
So this is an expansion of the Midrash. Like, how did this work?
God split and rent and tore them apart with God's 2 arms and ruined whole worlds in one moment. One after another, God created 1,000 worlds, which preceded this one, and all of them were swept away in the wink of an eye.
Wow, what a great image. I just had to share that with you. Okay, now, let's go to to God's, oops, sorry, this is twice, isn't it? Oh, okay. Well, we're going to continue with verse 3. So what does God do in the face of this sort of desolate, empty world, right? Or these conditions for birth, however you want to see it. So verse 3. Vayomer Elohim yihi or, vayihi or. Now this already is fascinating, right? It sounds very simple. First of all, God says, let there be light. So God is creating through language. Why does God create to do that? That's kind of unique in cosmogonies. I don't know if it's absolutely unique, but it is unique in Near Eastern mythology. So creating with language itself is fascinating. But look what happens. It could just say, this verse could just say, and God created light. But instead, there's already this sort of dialogue with the universe. God says, let there be light. And the world responds, or something responds with, and there was light. Yes, Sarah.
Oh, sorry, Sarah. Could you stand near a mic, please? Thank you.
Sarah, and speak a little bit more slowly. I love your excitement.
I can't remember quite how I began, but I'm thinking about responsiveness because here the ocean has a face. And I'm thinking about last week when we talked about Moshe and God and Panim el Panim, where face to face was really key and kind of delineating the relationship.
Yeah.
So I feel like we have a responsive universe in relation with God.
Right, an animated universe.
An animated,
a universe that's able to respond somehow to God.
Exactly.
And so this, again, points to, I started with aloneness, God in search of partnership. The world is responding to God. Yeah. Now look what happens. Verse 4. I love that, Sarah. Thank you. Vayar Elohim et ha'or ki tov. And God saw that the light was good. Now think about it. If God was in total control of creation, God wouldn't suddenly see that the world was good. Like when you create something, I don't know about all of you, but again, like when I write a sermon, I have something in mind, and what comes out, it's completely different. I have no control over the process. It doesn't seem like God has a lot of control or maybe some control, but not a lot of control over the process here, because otherwise God wouldn't suddenly see, oh, Vayar ki tov. That's fascinating, right? God would already know that it would be good. What are you looking for? Bathroom, yeah. So God sees that it was good. So there's some element of surprise here and responsiveness, right? There's this back and forth, yihi or, vayihi or, vayar ki tov, right? God, universe, God. Okay.
He was surprised by the goodness of light. That suggests that in previous worlds he
didn't have light.
Light. He did it without light. If this was a revelation to him, that it's good.
Interesting. So perhaps this is the first creation of light, and which is interesting because light is what enables us to see. Yeah, love that.
There's also another thing to consider, which it could be collaboration.
Collaboration between the universe and God.
What you might be calling responsiveness may include or just be collaboration.
Absolutely. I think partnership is all over this. And which makes us think again that God's in search of partnership, which I love. I want to get through this few verses and I'm going to call on Jill, who's been waiting, and then Wendy and Paul. Okay. Elohim ben ha'or ki tov, vayavdel Elohim ben ha'or u'ben ha'choshech. So the next step is separating the light and the darkness, which is interesting because God creates through naming and then through separation, right? And now, God uses language to call something to existence, then separates, and now names, to be more specific. So light is called day, and dark is called night. Vahi Erev, Vahi Boker Yom Echad. And then there was setting, there was dawning, day one. And if you read through this Genesis 1, there's this fabulous rhythm that grows and grows, this language repeats itself, but it also expands, right? And then the trees are fruit bearing and sort of replicate themselves. So God is creating a world that, becomes self-replicating and doesn't necessarily depend on all of God's speech acts, right? God puts a world into motion and then it's in motion. Okay. Who was waiting? Did I say Wendy and then, sorry, I said Jill, who's been waiting, and then Wendy and Paul. And Connie, lots of text left to do, so just keep that in mind as we open things up. Okay. Jill.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to add one comment. So I feel like on the issue of
I can't hear you, Jill.
Oh, you can't. Okay, call in someone else. Okay.
What'd she say? Okay. All right, Wendy. Sorry, Jill. Jill, also feel free to put your comment in the chat and I will read it.
What I was going to say is in terms of God seeking relationship is that you can't be a king without a kingdom, and so it's very nice that he's the king, but he has no kingdom.
So God had to become God through creating a world.
Correct.
Beautiful. Love that.
And also, I think it's very interesting the translation here for Lila. They put setting as opposed to night.
That's the translation for Erev, I think.
Yeah. No. For Lila, exactly. Setting should be Erev, and I'm interested what you think about that translation, because setting would be appropriate for Erev, but not for Lila.
Hold on a second. No, there was setting, but Erev. It's a translation for Erev. It is a translation.
Okay.
Okay, so hold on, let me look at the chat for a moment. Okay. Okay, so Jill says, on the idea of loneliness, it points to the importance of adding soul, seeing through the eyes of another, and through relationship to power. I love the idea of adding soul. I don't totally understand what you mean by power here. Feel free to add. But yeah, that's beautiful. Soul seen through the eyes of another. And God wanting to manifest, I think this is related to what Wendy's saying, God wanting to manifest God's self by creating a world. Because how else does God manifest God's self? Okay, so we have a lineup. We have Paul, and then I think Connie. Am I missing anyone? No. Okay. Paul, you're up. Paul, why are you here? What are you doing there?
I love my sweatshirt and I just feel guilty.
You can come in your sweatshirt. It's okay with me.
Thank you. It occurs to me that perhaps we put too much emphasis on the word create, and we should put more emphasis on the word begin. The question, it occurs to me that creating could be in quotation marks, and that the real question is, why did God begin? And that's a good question to me. And it occurs to me that the answer to that is existence, that the fundamental question of the universe is whether it exists or not, whether we exist or not. And the only way
I just lost you. I think we exist. I just lost you.
We don't know.
I understand to be or not to be, but here we are in this room. Don't we exist?
Is it a
You're not
projection?
so maybe you don't exist.
I am not in any way clear. It has not been made
Yes.
clear to me that I actually exist. And it occurs to me that God has the same existential question. And God begins to do what? God
So
begins.
I love that. So to go back to Wendy, so maybe God creates in order to exist.
Or
Or maybe God
creates
begins in order to exist.
demonstrate existence.
Or to
Right.
to manifest existence.
To
Yeah, love that. So I feel like there's so much in what you're saying, which I'd love to unpack, but we're not going to do it now. But it does feel connected to the tensions between being and not being, to be
well, and just one last thought that the emphasis here should be not on creating, but the emphasis should be on beginning. That we
So
need to
to me,
begin.
creating and beginning are very much related. Like I feel like we wake up into chaos every day and we dare to begin or dare to create. I don't think they're that different. And in fact, the word genius has within it GEN, which means to begin, Genesis. So that's fascinating. So I think you just created a beautiful link between those two words, creating and beginning.
I'll go with that.
You go with that? Okay, good. A midrashic resolution.
Indeed.
Right here, unfolding before our eyes. Okay. Connie and Brenda, and then I'm going back to the text.
So I like to play with letters a lot. And so I was looking at the words bara, breshit, bara, those two words. And if you divide those two words differently, it's bara. You take the first three letters of breshit, it's beit, resh, aleph, and then shayit bara. And this basically, he create, like there's no king without a kingdom. And he created in order so that people would know him and connect with him. So bara shayit bara, he created so that he would be created, he would be known.
Love that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Created so that he would be so that God would be created. So it's a kind of internal process that ends up in God being manifest in the world and there being a world. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, Brenda, last one, and we're going back to the text.
So I'm thinking of the Big Bang Theory in science, how we all started out from a singularity and then expanded a lot and kept expanding and kept creating. And so there was a beginning of oneness, the God, and then there was all these partnerships that were all in relationship to each other through gravitational pull, and so it's like everything is in relationship to everything because we all started out from one place, and that of course includes humans, that we're all in relationship to each other and all connected in some ways that we don't necessarily see but is there nevertheless.
Great. And that relates to Rob's point before about our creating oneness as a collective. Yeah, thank you, Brenda. Okay, so let's look at the next midrash, which is kind of long, so I might skip around a little bit. We're in number 9. So here's the drama that happened before God created human beings. And I think it's really instructive in terms of who we are. And I think that's maybe underlined by this very moment in Jewish history or in our life as a people. So it says, Amar Rabbi Simon. Rabbi Simon said, and this is number 9 again. So when the Holy One, blessed be she came to create Adam, the first man. Na'asu malachei hasharet kitim kitim, chavarot chavarot. So the heavenly angels like divided up into like little groups and bands and factions. Mehem omrim al yibareh umehem omrim yibareh. Oh, thank you. Is that you, Caroline, stepping in and helping me? Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. So some of them said human beings they should be created, and others say they shouldn't be created. So the angels were split. Okay, I'm going to skip the proof text. Okay, then it says Chesed Omer, Chesed loving kindness said, Yibareh, let him be created. Why? Let human beings be created. Why? Shehu Gomel Chesedim, because human beings will perform acts of loving kindness. The Emet Omer, and truth says, Al Yibareh, do not create human beings. Why? Shekulo Shkarim, because he's made up entirely of lies. Tzedek Omer, righteousness, justice says, create. Shehu Oses Takot, because human beings do righteous actions, acts of staka. Shalom Omer Al Yibareh, peace says, do not create human beings. Why? Kitata, because human beings are all about quarrel and conflict. And what did God do? Me'asa Kadosh Baruch Hu. So what did God do? The Holy One, blessed be they, said, Natal emet v'hishlicho la'aret. Took truth, cast truth down to the ground, right? It's like, in a sense, you can't really have truth, this ongoing commitment to truth and human beings. God needed to suppress truth in order to create human beings. It's interesting that God didn't suppress here peace as well. Okay, so then the angel said before God, Ribon Olamim, Master of the universe, Ma'atam nevazeh tachsim al tichsia shalach. So why are you despising or demeaning? I think this is a Greek word for seal. Is that correct? Yes, you're doing your very seal. Ta'aleh emet meharetz, let truth rise up from the ground. Again, I'm going to skip the proof text. Rabbanan Amre La B'Shem Rabbi Chanina. And so the rabbi said, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, Bar Ide, the son of Ide, Rabbi Pinchas, and Rabbi Pinchas, Rabbi Chelkia, and Rabbi Chelkia, B'Shem Rabbi Simon, Amar, Me'od, Hu Ha'adam. Hu Adam. So here they're bringing up the word Ma'od, because when God creates human beings, God sees that they were very good. Hadahus dichtib, as it is written, Vayar Elohim mikol asher asah, v'hinei tov ma'od. So God saw everything that God created, and behold, it was very good. So that's when God created all of creation. But here the rabbis are saying that refers to the creation of human beings, v'hinei tov adam. And behold, human beings are good. Now, what does good mean in the context of Genesis? I was going to say this before. It has to do not only with goodness, but some kind of viability and sustainability. Like, is this working? Is it standing? And the other worlds, according to that midrash, did not stand, but this one is standing. Okay. Rav Huna Rabba Shal Sipurin Amar Ad Shal Noachei Hasharet Dayanim Elu Elu Taskim Elu Elu V'Ra'o Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So Rabbi Huna says, as all the angels and their factions are arguing and discussing, God created human beings. Amar lahem ma'atem dayanim, and God said to them, "What are you talking about? Kavar naseh adam. Human beings have already been created," which is interesting because it kind of maps nicely onto when the Israelites were before the Red Sea and they were terrified to go in. And they were all arguing amongst themselves about not going in, and Nachshon, wearing any. Then Aminadav, Nachshon just walked into the water, and then the sea split. Right? It's like they're all arguing. Like, you know how much we argue, we don't do anything. It's just like about going forward. The guys just went forward in the face of arguments. Okay, going on. Okay, so let's look at the language now for God creating human beings. We're now in number 10. And we'll see more here about partnership. Vayomer Elohim na'aseh adam b'tsalmenu kidmutenu. So God says, let us make human beings in our images and in our form, or in our image according to our likeness. So age-old question, who's the us? What do you let us? What are you talking about? Who's God talking to? Right? So there are possible answers for this. It's the royal root. Or as we just saw, God is in conversation with the angels. Let us create human beings. And angels said no. It's like, yeah, no, that's good. Let's do it. Right?
When did the angels get created? They just show up?
The angels just are there. They're uncreated beings. They're there. Left over from one of those other worlds. Yeah, Connor.
There's a funny thing, actually, that certain Jewish groups kind of keep in the closet, having to do with the fact that in the Bible, there are certain areas where it implies that Jews are monolaters, not actually monotheists.
Yes.
So
the Bible in many places attests to that monolatry.
Yeah, so that has.
As opposed to monotheism.
So certain ultra-Orthodox groups have to try to figure out how to square that away. So one thing that some people in the ultra-Orthodox community have hypothesized is that various other pagan pantheons were not, in point of fact, false gods per se. They were just angels that visited the other nations.
God, so that's great, and that also points to the fact that Elohim itself, God's name in the Torah, is plural. The grammar around it is singular, so it's fascinating. So that can be sort of a vestige of monolatry, or an example of monolatry.
Can you explain monolatry?
Monolatry says, I only worship one God, not that there are, that there
And
are
focus
not.
on one.
A monotheist says
Yeah.
there is only one God. A monolater says, I only worship one God.
So in other
No
words,
other gods before me.
what'd you say?
You shall have no other
Exactly.
gods.
You shall have no other gods before me, but there are other gods. Like, I married one man, but I know there are other men in the world.
Thank God.
Thank God, right? Okay.
That's fascinating. That's awesome.
It is fascinating. Thank you, Tom. Okay, so now, here's the let us. Now, here's another possibility. Maybe this is also an expression, this goes back to Sarah's comment, of God partnering with the world. God is now in conversation with the world before God is in conversation with human beings. So let us, right? So now that God has a rhythm going and a dialogue going with the world, let us do this together, which is interesting because then it presents human beings as really a product of a partnership, a divine human partnership with the universe. Okay. Maybe a disastrous one, who knows? Okay, okay, and then what's the idea here? And then, so Na'aseh Adam B'Tzelmenu Kidmutenu. Asher Chaim, do you want to pick it up? I feel like I've been talking a lot. I know, we're in the middle of a verse, but you can start from the beginning of the verse.
Yes, unmuting would help, wouldn't it? Vayomer Elohim. Elohim said, Na'aseh Adam B'Tzelmenu Kidmutenu. Let us make earthling in our tselem as our likeness. V'yirdu v'degatayam u'v'alf hashamayim u'v'behema u'v'chol ha'ares. And let them dominate in the fish of the seas and the birds of the heavens and the critters and all of the land, uv'chol haremes haromes al haaretz, and the creepy crawlies that crawl across the earth. Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzelemo, b'tzelem Elohim bara oto, zachar u'nekeva bara otam. Elohim created earthling in God's tselem, image. In the image of Elohim, he created him, male and female. God created them.
Hold on 1 second, Asher Chaim. So this is a fascinating and very rich and complex verse. So God created human beings in God's image. So again, is that sort of a seeking, at least again, the way the Torah portrays God, seeking like, a mirror image in this world so that God would be less alone and God would be reflected Like on some level, and I don't mean only about narcissism, like we're all looking for reflection and resonance, right? And if you think about like, which I don't really understand completely, but mirror neurons, like we're all literally reflecting one another. And here God creates, a being to reflect God. Like, wow, that's really interesting. And human beings are created both in the singular and in the plural, which means, and this goes back to Adel's comment before, maybe God's self is plural and is, well, it's different than monolatry, but within God, as Kabbalah presents God, right, there are minions, right? There are multitudes within God. And especially, given some psychological theories, like we're also, and Walt Whitman, we're also filled with multitude parts, some of which we understand, some of which we don't, some of which are exiled, some of which we suppress. Like, who are we really? Like, we are endless as God is infinite. So here, human beings are both plural and singular.
And strangely, that it says oto, singular, otam.
Well, it says oto and then otam,
Right.
which is amazing. So human beings are singular. There's a unity to the multitudes, just like in God. Right? There's a unity to the multitudes, and there's also, and this is amazing in its sort of gender inclusion, Zachar and Nekeva, right? We're each, well, no, not, well, maybe we're each male and female, but what it's saying here is that God created a mirror of God's self, or an image that reflects God's self, and that mirror image is male and female, which again, as Kabbalah sort of makes explicit, there is male and female within God. Okay, so that's a really fascinating verse. Okay, do the last one now.
Vayvarech otam Elohim, Elohim blessed them, Vayomer lahem, and said to them, Elohim, Pru urevu mil'u et haaretz v'kivshuha, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and conquer her. Uredu v'digat hayam uv'arof hashamayim, uv'chol haya haromeset al haaretz, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and all of the creatures that crawl across the earth.
So what is this disturbing articulation of dominion, which is really not our topic today, but I just want to say a few words about it. So there's like a generational conversation, and most commentators agree that what dominion means is really responsibility to the earth and for the earth. And we can also look at this and say, oh, right here are the seeds for the beginning of the end, given the way human beings have destroyed the earth, right? So it's really complicated. Even if it means responsibility, it turns into domination. So which one does it reflect? I don't know. Okay, now let's look at number 11, the language of partnership.
Vayikah.
Hold on, let me just say one thing about this. Caroline, if you can raise up yes, perfect, thank you, right there, great. So as soon as God creates human beings in Genesis 2, which is the second creation story, which is different than the first creation story of human beings, and God speaks to human beings, there's that language of command, which I want to dig into after we read this passage. Like, why is that the language between God and human beings? Like, what does that reflect? Okay, go ahead.
Vayikah Adonai Elohim et Adam, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, God took the earthling, Vaynehehu v'gan Eden le'ovdah ul-shomrah, and set him down in the garden of Eden, moisture, to work it and to guard it. Vaitzav Adonai Elohim al ha'adam lemor, and Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim commanded earthling, saying, Mikol eitz hagan achol tochel, eat of every tree of the garden. Ume'etz hada'at tov vara lo tochal mimenu. However, from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, do not eat of it. Ki v'yom acholcha mimenu mot tamut. Because during the day of your eating from it, dying you will die. Vayomer Adonai Elohim, Yod He Vav He Elohim said, Lo krov heyot ha'adam levado, not good, earthling being by himself, E'eselo Ezer Kinegdo, I will form for him a helpmate in opposition to him, to reduce Rabbi Ingber's sermon last night into 2 words, right? The Ezer Kenegdo.
Ah, I didn't hear it. Great. So a few things here. So the first thing that God does after God creates human beings in Genesis 2 is command. I don't want to go into the substance of that command or the content of the command, but that is, the language of God to human beings throughout the Torah. And there's something about like the more powerful entity in relationship with a human that, when there's sort of speech acts between them, it takes the form of command, right? It's, I think it makes sense given who human beings are and given who God is, right? And the sad, unfortunate story is that human beings can't sustain that command, right? It's very rare in the Torah where they really can live in the face of that command and sort of follow through. The Mishkan is a beautiful example where they do follow through on God's instructions. And there's this perfect alignment between command and what, how the Israelites respond. But here, the command is too much or too wrong for human beings, and they do otherwise. Okay. And also note this amazing line of, it's not good for human beings to be alone. There's something about aloneness that isn't good, right? After a whole chapter of tov ma'od, right? Lo tov. It's not sustainable. This is not going to work, this loneliness, this aloneness. So not only is God seeking partnership, but human beings are to be in partnership, right? And that challenge, again, characterizes the rest of the Torah. Okay, let's look at the next 11. I'm going to do 2 more sources, and then we will open things up. So let's just
Haisha.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
The woman saw Kikov ha'etz lema'achal. Good the tree was for eating. V'chi ta'avahu la'inayim, and seductive to the eyes. V'nechmad ha'etz lahaskil, and it's desirable regarding the tree to have lahaskil, to have knowledge. Vatikach mipiryo vatochal. She took from its fruit and ate. Vatiten gam l'ishah imah vayochal. She gave also to her man with her, and he ate. Vatipachna einei shnehem. The eyes of both of them were opened. Vayed'u, and they had awareness. Ki erumim heim, that they were naked. Vayitperu ale te'ena vayasu lahem hagorot. They sewed together fig leaves and made belts for themselves. Vayishma'u et kol Adonai Elohim mithalech bagan l'ruach hayom, and they heard the sound of Yod He Vav He Elohim walking God's self in the garden at the ruach, breath, spirit, wind time of the day. Vayidhabeh ha'adam v'ishto mipnei Adonai Elohim betoch eitz hagan. And the Adam and his woman hid themselves from the presence of Yod He Vav He Elohim in or amidst the tree of the garden. Vayikra Adonai Elohim el ha'adam. Yod He Vav He Elohim called out to the Adam, Vayomer lo ayyeka, and said to him, where are you?
Thank you so much. So this is a painful articulation of the first rupture between human beings and God in the garden, where everything, right, the Garden of Eden represents total unity, like no division, no barriers between human beings and God. And then human beings disobey the command, and then suddenly they know that they're separate, and they know that they're naked, and they cover themselves up, right? So that's the beginning of like barriers between you know, God and human beings. And then God says, where are you? Not because God doesn't know where they are. But what did they do? Who are they now? And why are they hiding from God? Why are they hiding? Right? So it's an existential question as opposed to a sort of a literal sort of shot, you know, question on the simple level of things. Where are you? Where are you? And it's a beautiful question to ask ourselves, you know, in the tshuva process, in the repentance process. Like, where are we really? Like, what's going on? And we lose sight of that. I know so many times, like, I forget to ask myself. I'm just like on automatic, and I forget to ask myself, like, where am I? What's happening? And that takes a pause. So I'm going to end here, and then we'll actually have some time to discuss with Rachel Annisfeld's words. And again, we started with loneliness. We're ending with loneliness. And really the point is not loneliness, but that seeking out of partnership because of that loneliness and that oneness. And that oneness reflecting, and that aloneness reflecting the loneliness or aloneness of God. It's pretty amazing. Again, we're creating God's image in that way as well, right? Unique, alone, and wanting to overcome that loneliness and that aloneness, right? And being successful or not successful in that. You know, we all know that you can be in a very crowded room and feel alone, and you can be in a relationship and feel alone, right? It's like, you know, loneliness is not overcome only because you're with other people. It takes something else. You know, I think Lana said something about sharing cosmic loneliness. I love that idea. Okay, and for those of you that missed that text, it's near the beginning. Okay, so Dr. Rachel Annisfeld says, God cries out for connection to each and every blade of grass, and each is sown the call, Ayeka, where are you? Do you see me? Do you feel my presence here in the world of hiddenness? Do you hear my call at every moment to come close? Tov, tov, good, good, or viable, viable. The wind whistles through the tree. Tov, tov, come close through the trees. Tov, tov, come close, come close. You are not alone. Through these words, God built this world. Out of the ache of God's own lonely heart, God built a world that yearns for nothing more than to be connected. Through creation, God turned the essential tov of being alone into the tov. The essential lo tov of being alone into the tov of a created world. We are the good that comes out of a broken, yearning heart. Our own loneliness, planted deep inside us, a piece of the divine, is itself a call to bring forth that tov, to heed the call for connection in each of God's precious creations, to hear God's own heart calling to us and know that we are not alone in our own loneliness or in our loneliness. All right, those are the sources. We can stop sharing, Caroline, and see, especially people who haven't spoken yet would like to say something. Maybe it's just marinating. Hi, Helio, good to see you, and each of us. All right, first, anyone who hasn't spoken yet before I call on. Okay, Miriam and B.
Sorry, Miriam. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
One thing I'm thinking about is a professor, a poet from years back, many years back, who always used to talk about orphaning the text, orphaning the poem after, you know, you have to send it out into the world. It's not yours anymore in creation. And something in the last pieces you read made me think about that story of, you know, they have to eat from the tree, and they have to go out. They have to be orphaned, so to speak. And then how it seems like so much of it is then what is the relationship then of creator and created, and how do you can't go back to what it was, but how do you find relationship again? And I think about that so much. You know, again, what you were talking about is the artist is creator. I think on some level we're all artists, whatever that is for each one of us, and that relationship from that place whether it's loneliness or having so much that it has to spill somewhere. And then